I am the earth, she is my mother. I am her sister, she my lover. I am life, she is my power. I am blood, she my mover. I am bone, she is a mountain. I am stone, she my body. I am a mother, she is my child. I am the earth, she is home. Earth, sister, mother, lover, life, blood, power, mover, bone, stone, mountain, body, mother, earth, child, home.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Um,
You know what's not ready is our website.
yeah, well,
So this was supposed to be a fundraiser, and we were going to so easily send you to deepgreenresistance.org, and we can't because our website has deserted us. The website will be back. It's only on vacation, but for now, if you want to give money, best thing to do is go to our Facebook page. So just go to Facebook, and it is a public page. You don't need to have an account on Facebook. Just go there, Deep Green Resistance, and we have three different ways you can give us money. We got PayPal, we got Stripe, and we got Bonterra. So all the links are live. That's why I'm sending you there. You just click on a link, and then you can just give us money. You can also send us a check if you're still 20th century kind of people, and that's fine too. And that's, yeah. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that it's actually not true that the website deserted us. This was intentional. It's part of a performance art piece about the relationship between humans and technology and how technology will always fail us. Um, and so we should not rely on the technologies, but instead on real life. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of really exciting guests, and instead of me blathering, we're going to go right to them. And the first one is George Wertner. And George is the former Ecological Projects Director for the Foundation for Deep Ecology. He's currently the Executive Director of Public Lands Media, which I highly recommend that you watch, you look at. It's great stuff. He's an ecologist and wildlands activist. He's published 38 books on environmental issues and natural history, including such environmentally focused books as Welfare Ranching, Wildfire, Thrillcraft, Energy, and most recently, Protecting the Wild. So, as always, George, thank you for your work in the world. And George, do you want to talk today about parks and the importance of protecting wild nature?
Yes, I want to begin with saying that uh, parks are our society's way of identifying uh, special places that we decide are, above the normal sort of exploitation traditions, logging, mining, oil and gas, and so forth, and that we set them aside partially to preserve and protect places for wildlife and wild nature, ecological process. That's the general foundation of the Park Service mission. And this is a long tradition. People say, well, this is something that just came about in the United States. But really, when you look at cultures around the world, they've always had sacred places and places that were off limits to normal practices. And you can, whether it's the Japanese view of Mount Fuji or Genghis Khan had some mountain that he used to go, to speak to the gods, etc. So this idea of setting aside places away from the normal way that we look at them as something to be uh, for entirely for human uses it has been part of cultural traditions around the world. And our way of doing that is to legalize these places through designation as national park units. And and I think on the whole, people can some will be critical and say, well, we people want to set them aside for economic development, which is true. Parks do provide some local economic opportunities or recreation and so forth. But nevertheless, the underlying fundamental reason why we set these places apart is it goes beyond those sort of more traditional, you might say, purposes. And I think that one of the reasons why I'm a real advocate of national parks is because we really need to have a whole lot more places where we set aside lands from exploitation to allow wild nature to persist. And uh, and what I've seen is when people can criticize parks around the world where there's poachers and so forth, but usually if they're well maintained and funded, they do a pretty good job of preserving things. I'm really identify a lot with Yellowstone Park in that area, the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. But basically every single species that was found there, except actually for Rocky Mountain grasshoppers, which went extinct around 1900, but every species that I'm aware of that ever existed at the time it was first designated, 1872, still is found there. And that suggests that, compare that to any other land designation we have, and we can't say that for other places. So the role of national parks around the world for biodiversity preservation, I think, is can't be disputed. And the only thing I can say is we just need a lot more land designated that way, and a lot more places given that kind of political, legal, and social standing.
Well, thank you for all that, George. And um, I would love to ask a follow-up question about the parks and parks in general. But before we do that, can you give a 1-minute version of the Rocky Mountain grasshopper? Because that is one of the most extraordinary and horrifying stories I've ever heard.
Well, I'm working from memory here, but it used to cloud. The skies would be dark when these, I don't know what you call them. They're not flocks, but anyway, large masses of grasshoppers would go across the Great Plains, and the they consume everything in their path. I mean, even eating leather, straps and wood and so forth. But they went extinct suddenly, and the reason that I heard for that was in plowing up the Great Plains for growing wheat or corn or whatever, we fragmented its habitat so much that it just disappeared in a matter of a decade. And and then when you think about all the from our point of view, when it ate all the grass up or something, we consider that bad. But there were a lot of animals that depended on those masses of grasshoppers coming by every once in a while for food, for even the way it changed the vegetation and so forth. So like everything, we often don't appreciate the loss when it happens until sometime later. And I can't even say at this point, having never witnessed that and hardly have anybody who did witness it and make any comments about it, how ecologically significant it was. But it's hard to believe that when you have clouds that darken the sky for a couple of days and cover huge areas of these, they would call them grasshopper plagues back then, that there wasn't some significance to it in terms of ecological sustainability.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted you to mention that more is that they went from it's pretty much accepted that that one of the swarms of them was the greatest single accumulated biomass of one species in one region by mass, and it was basically a couple three states, and they went from that to extinct within, like you said, 10, 20 years. And just how um, we are messing with two things. One is we're messing with things we don't understand. And the second is, and this is what I'd like you to respond to, is the importance of habitat, especially large scale habitat. And you can use the buffalo if you want as an example of the need for large scale habitat or grizzlies or anything else you want.
Yeah, the comment I would make is more philosophical. I don't assume that anything is quote bad just because it doesn't fit our idea of what is good. And so, in terms of the quote plague of grasshoppers, until I can uh, look into it more, I'm going to assume there's some important ecological uh, trait um, it fulfilled. And I think if we approach ecological situations like that, we'll be much better off, not just assuming something, whether it's we've got to get rid of if you're a rancher, got to get rid of wolves, or you don't want prairie dogs on the Great Plains, or whatever it might be. My response is, well, we should first thing is ask, well, what kind of ecological role do these creatures have?
That's great. Is there anything else you want to say today?
Oh, just that. I'll just mention it. I'm president of another organization called the New National Parks Campaign, and our goal is to try to create 100 new parks around the United States. And a lot of this would be reassigning lands that are under, say, BLM or Forest Service control and putting it under the Park Service. In other cases, it would be entirely new acquisitions in many cases. But it's something that I think is desperately needed to take these other agencies, to take away their license to destroy the planet by logging and oil and gas and mining and all the rest of it.
Well, thank you so much for all that, George. And thank you for your work in the world. And I look forward to our next interview.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
So the next person up is Deanna Lynn Wolf. She's the executive director of Unite for Parks, a 501c3 nonprofit, which she founded. Their focus is on ensuring that our national park system is maintained and funded, that new national parks are created. So, Deanna, thank you also for all your great work. And tell me about how you got started.
Yeah. So you can hear me. Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah. I was listening to George and thinking like, um, I would like to talk about how important parks are for the human spirit and for inspiration, and for just feeling good and happy, because that's essentially how I got started in this whole movement, right? And they're just really important for us as well as all the creatures on the planet. But for me personally, I'm from Silicon Valley, and I was raised in Cupertino, which is Apple headquarters. And I can tell you that I did not think I would be in this realm of a career, because I was just not exposed to anything like this at all. And if it wasn't for my experience out in nature in the parks, which I'm about to tell you about, um, I wouldn't have just turned into something completely different than expected. So, um, here's what happened to me and how I got started doing work for parks. Essentially, I was a graduate student, and my goal was to get a degree in literature, a master's in literature. And my parents were like, "Yeah, if you're going to get a degree like that, you're going to pay for it." So I got a job up in just outside Yosemite, working as a waitress at a hotel called Tenai Lodge. Now, it sounded like a fun summer, great way to pay for school. Things went sideways. So I had rented a room from a couple. The couple didn't, they had issues with drugs and alcohol. I didn't know that, of course, when I started living with them. But I came home one day. The police had been called. He threatened to murder her, and then he drove his car into her friend's vehicle. All this mayhem happened. In short, I ended up going out into the woods, because I knew that at least in the national forest, you could camp for free for 2 weeks. And the context that has to be understood is that I'd never camped anywhere by myself, period. And here I was going to do this for the summer. And I was not comfortable with the situation, but I didn't really know what else to do. How was I going to pay for school? I didn't want to lose my job. So there I was. I would finish my shifts at like 10 or 11 at night, so it'd be dark, and I'd drive out into the woods to my little tent, and I was afraid of the whole situation. So I had weapons, which were a cooking pot and laundry bleach. And the idea was if someone came by, I was going to hit them with the pot, bleach in the eyes, and take care of business, right? But here's the thing. Nothing bad ever happened. Instead of having this horrible experience, I would wake up every day with the sun cascading through the trees and the birds singing to me and the sound of water and the sweet smell of pine in the forest. And in a month, I never felt better in my life. Like it was amazing. Like I just didn't conceptually understand that you could be that happy and be living in the dirt and out in nature for, all that time. So the fact that the parks were there enabled me to pay for school, enabled me and changed my life direction entirely because this experience was so profound and so wonderful that I wanted to come back the next summer and the next summer. And then, time passed, and at some point, you become an advocate because these places have such a deep and powerful effect on you. You want others to have that experience. And so, fast forward 12 to 15 years later, and I discovered that the place that I had spent my summers outside was degraded, and they were logging a lot more, and there's a lot more vehicle use and trash everywhere. And then I made my decision to work on protecting this place which essentially between Yosemite and Sequoia, right? So there's a missing piece, and our big idea was to make this into a national monument, but a monument managed by the Park Service, right? I did not know that this was going to be a massive I mean, I knew it would be a lot of work, but I was not really aware of how hard it is to make a national park. It's really, really hard, and it takes a ton of work, and we're not there yet. But ultimately, coming to forward to unite 4 parks where we are today, the idea is to support work like what George is talking about, which is to help other people make parks. I've been through a lot of work and a lot of legislation and so forth. And I want people to be inspired to make parks and feel confident about that. So, yeah, and that's what you have to make friends too, like all of us today. It's an important thing to connect. So I could talk further, but do you have a question or?
Yeah, a couple more minutes
Yeah.
on, um, I think it's really important. How did you go from that place of, wow, I'm really sad that this beautiful place is being destroyed to
Right.
actually doing something about it? Because like I've known so many people in my life who were like, I'm gonna write a book, and then they
Yeah.
don't do it.
Right.
Or
That's
I
right.
want to protect this place and they don't do it. So what got you off your butt?
Well, I mean, I had been working for a long time trying to sort out how I was going to contribute because the original summer, that first summer up there, I felt like something had been given to me, like a gift, and I immediately was like, well, I want to give this to others. It was very clear. But then what was very unclear was how, and that took me a long time to sort out. But the actual nuts and bolts of trying to make what at the time was a national monument proposal, it was pretty simple. I mean, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I called up at the time Obama was president, and I called up monuments that had just been created by Obama, the agencies, and they led me back to these advocates who always sounded very tired. Uh, but they gave me the outline for what a campaign looks like, and I'm like, okay, great. I wrote the outline down, and then off I went. It was very it maybe took me 2 weeks to formulate a plan, and people who win, they want you to win too, usually. So especially grassroots advocates, like we're in the same struggle here. So I mean, it was like very, very, very simple. Just, I made my decision. The decision took a long time to make, but then the actual action plan, I'm like, well, we'll do what we know works for this administration. So, it was that simple, but I do think that the campaigns are really tough, and you're going to need friends, right? And also I want people to be inspired to know that you can make a difference even if you're not a super high powered person who has political connections. I didn't have any connections, and I walked into Congresswoman Lofgren's office. Somebody suggested like I should talk to her, and I said okay, and I met with her staff, and uh I told the story. This is in the middle of Silicon Valley, and I thought, oh boy, they're not gonna support this at all because I just told them my outdoor nature story. Now, mind you, I had gotten 100 business supporters at that point from the region, and I presented it to them, and I had a coalition, but still, I was thinking they wouldn't be in support. And 2 weeks later, I had my first congressional support letter from Representative Zoe Lofgren. So you know, you have to just try it, and then you get to have some good moments. There's bad moments too, but there's good ones, and we can make a difference. So I hope people will reflect on that and remember to act, and also remember to support grassroots advocates. And what you're doing here is really important. Getting the word out and keeping people informed and inspired is really important. So I hope you get a bunch of donations for this.
Well, thank you. I have one more question, which
Yeah.
is in your specific the park that the park that will join Sequoia and Yosemite for the
Yeah.
monument. How many acres are you trying to protect?
Yeah, I mean the details are 1.4 million acres, so it's a huge area. It's like twice as big as Yosemite, and um pretty massive. And but it's a special place. It's between the two parks, and also it's in the center of the longest interconnected wilderness in the lower 48. So, I thought this is ideal, to protect this place. Plus, it's where I had my wonderful summers outside. And it would, but at the moment, we're really focused on trying to ensure that the current administration does not dismantle the park system, and we're working with other nonprofits to build a team that makes sure that they're funded and so forth. So that project, the big monument project, is on hold while we work on these other things, which are equally important.
Well, thank you so much. And before you go, George wants to say something. Go ahead, George.
I would like to emphasize what she said, that almost every national park unit you see had just a few individuals who were passionate about the place. They didn't have necessarily any special expertise or connections or whatever, but they started advocating for protecting these areas. And you can see it over and over again. So I want to applaud for what she's doing, but also to say that is how things get done. And people, if you've got a piece of a place that you think is special and deserves protection, don't be discouraged. That's how all these things just about have come about, was through a small handful of individuals who decided to do something.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Deanna, thank you for showing up today, and thank you for showing up for nature for all these years. And I look forward to our next interview too.
Yay. Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Thank you. And what? Wait, Leah's going to say something. What?
Oh, no, it's fine. It's just before you go on to the next one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you may have heard us say that our website has absconded in the night with all our files. It's okay, because in this day and age, you can run, but you can't hide. And we know where our website is, and we're going to get it back.
Okay.
But if you want to donate, normally we would send you there, but we're not going to, because you can't. But what you can do is go to our Facebook page, which is public. You don't need to be on Facebook to go there. So just go to Facebook, Deep Green Resistance. We have 3 different ways you can give money. Also, Mary has been very loyal here and put all the links in the chat, direct links. So if you feel inspired after hearing even our first 2 speakers, please just click on one of those links, and whatever you can give, we would love to have it. So thank you.
Thank you. And Leah and I are playing good cop, bad cop here. Okay, so the next person is Jacob Shockey. And Jacob is a human father and husband. He spends much of his time assisting humans to coexist with beavers. where they have conflicting ideas about habitat. A wildlife biologist and published researcher, Jacob has been working in Oregon's creeks and wetlands for over a decade. He also sings to himself, loves flying kites, and regularly forgets how to spell allochthonous, or however that's pronounced. Um, and also, I've had many conversations with Jacob about beavers, and uh, he is A, delightful, and B, he presents beavers well. It's just fabulous to talk with Jacob. Anyway, go ahead.
Excellent. I've got a few photos of beavers I could show while we do this too. Should I do that, Derek, or do you
I
want
have to give you permission to share.
I just sent you a request.
Okay, I'm allowing it.
Okay, great. I'll share this while I talk a bit, and then you can interrupt and let me know if I should cover something else too. All right, beavers. So my name is Jacob Shockey. I spend all my time working with beavers, for beavers. This is a mom and a baby beaver. Beavers mate for life, and they have little territories. So much like people, they'll often pass down those territories over generations. And we're just going to talk a little bit about them over the next few minutes. Beavers are sort of famous for their building skills. If people know nothing about beavers, they know they build dams. This is a good example of a beaver dam. This is in Spawn Creek outside Logan, Utah. So if you're ever in Logan, Utah, this is the best thing going. Go up Spawn Creek, trespass on the church property, and find this beaver dam. It's fantastic. It's hard to tell from this photo, but that's probably a 22-foot tall beaver dam. Beavers build dams to back up water, and then they have lots of things that they do in this water. So we'll kind of go through all the things that beavers build. First of all, in the background of this picture, if you look, it's kind of hard to see because it's up against the bank, but you can see this big conical shape of sticks, and that's their bank lodge. So beavers build two structures. They build a dam that backs up water. Nobody lives in the dam other than newts and fish and everything that finds that complex habitat really great. But the beavers themselves then will build a lodge or a den, and they'll have an underwater entrance to that. Here's a picture of an underwater entrance. I'm kind of standing on a bank den. And the beavers will dive underwater, and then they'll go up in this tunnel, and then they'll have a warm, kind of cozy, dry spot that they live in. If you crawl up into the warm, cozy, dry spot, as I have done, this is what you see. It's usually like 4 to 6 feet round on a small one. They've got willow in there. They are rodents, but they don't have that rodenty smell. They kind of smell like willows. So it's pretty nice. And sometimes they'll have 1 or 2, 3 exits in addition to their main one, just to escape if something's coming in for them. Because they're 60 pounds of slow-moving protein. This is like everything wants to eat a beaver in the wild if they can get a hold of one. Beavers are very, very graceful in the water, but less so on land. And so they flood areas to keep the large predators out. They're creatures of habit. So not only do they have this spot for the whole of their lives and multi-generations, but they will build canals and trail systems through their woodlot and use that for moving material in and out of the creek. Lots of people like to look at the beaver dam, but one of the other things beavers do is they move tons and tons of allochthonous inputs. So that's that word that I never remember how to spell. Allochthonous input, basically like coming from outside the system into the system. And this drives the bottom of the food web, all the aquatic insects and everything that then the juvenile fish are eating, and all of the food chain is driven on this like tons and tons of biomass that the beavers are moving into the system through their series of canals and waterways. And of course, they're vegans. In Narnia, Mr. Beaver goes fishing and everybody eats a fresh trout dinner. And since then, especially our friends over in Europe are convinced beavers are pescivores, but they are not. In the wintertime, they like to eat the cambium layer off of the sticks. They'll kind of chew them like a corn on the cob. And this is a feeding raft the beavers have left in a body of water, a little spot they feel safe. And they've left a lot of sticks there. In the spring and summer, they kind of transition to the leafy greens, the salads, the herbaceous stuff on the banks. And we don't really notice the beavers are there as readily as when they're leaving sticks all over the place. So if you look at this photo again, you can kind of see all those elements. You got the dam, you got the lodge in the back. You can see those trails heading up into the aspen grove where they're bringing down aspen. And then sort of in the middle of their pond, you see this sort of tangle. That's their winter food cache because this fall when I took this picture and they're getting ready for the winter time, this will completely freeze over and they'll have all of that stored aspen limb tangle down in the water where they can get at to it under the ice. This is sort of a schematic of a beaver wetland. And beavers have been doing this on the top half of the planet since before we emerged in the fossil record. I mean, beavers have been building houses out of sticks and lumber since before we ever conceived of that idea. And we were probably inspired by beavers. As we moved out of Central Africa, we moved into the top half, the northern hemisphere that was fully beavered. Every fresh waterway in the top half of the planet was under the management of beavers. And we can now do ecology and look at that and say, oh, wow, when beavers are managing fresh water, we get wetland systems. There's, nesting sites for neotropical migratory birds, increased waterfowl, fish, blah, blah, blah. But of course, like we're looking at an evolved complex system. Beavers have been in charge of water for millions of years. This fellow, David Thompson, was one of the first people to map much of the northern part of Turtle Island, and he was a conscripted orphan fellow out of London, working for the Hudson Bay Company, and had a gimpy leg, but it didn't slow him down. He mapped most of Canada. The first maps of Canada were David Thompson's, and this is what he wrote. Oh, and you know what? I can't read it because of the way the screen is shared. There we go. I'm going to go like this to read it to you. This is what he said in his journal when contemplating the North America of his day. He wrote, "It may be said to be in the possession of two distinct races of beings, man and beaver, except the Great Lakes, the waves of which were too turbulent," which makes sense. We can see, the underwater entrance to their den, they don't want turbulence in that. So it's like, okay, I get that. Beaver occupied all the waters of the northern part of the continent. Every river where the current was moderate and sufficiently deep, the banks of the water's edge occupied by their houses. To every small lake and all the ponds, they builded dams and enlarged and deepened them to the height of the dams. Even the grounds that occasionally overflowed by heavy rains, they also made dams, and they made them permanent ponds. And as they heightened the dams, increased the extent and added to the depth of the water. Thus, all the lowlands were in possession of beaver, and all the hollows of the higher ground. I love it when people think to note something in their journals like this because it speaks to, like the clouds of the grasshoppers, a hemisphere where beavers were in control of the lowlands. And many of the valleys would have looked like this valley. Basically, toe slope to toe slope, you have a complex beaver wetland where it's not really clear where the main channel of the creek is. Here's another one from my area. This is right below Crater Lake National Park. And here again, you can see that the beaver dams aren't that classic beaver dam I showed in Logan, Utah. It's those crests where the water is backed up against. You can see there's 3 beaver dams here. But it's really spanning the water out into this sponge. And you start measuring habitat then in acres instead of linear feet. Fur trade happened. I know a lot of us are familiar with this. The Pilgrims were sending back beaver pelts on their first ship back, and the entirety of Western expansion was funded with beaver pelts. When they got to my area, there was a currency that the Hudson Bay Company was doing, where if you bring in a salted, dried, tanned beaver pelt, it was called a made beaver pelt, or made beaver, and you could trade it in for these chips. So if you look at that chip, it says 5MB, which stands for made beaver. And these were tokens that you could use at the company store. So before gold-backed currency, we had beaver-backed currency. And it was all because of these top hats. In London, beaver felt top hats were all the vogue. They would take the discs, they would stack them up into big bales, they'd send them back to London, they'd break them open. The hatters would then shave the fur off the leather. The leather was scrapped. And then the guard hairs and the underfur were separated using mercury, and the fumes of which made the hatters go crazy and eventually die. So that's where you get mad as a hatter. The first white guy through my area was this fellow, Peter Skin Ogden. He grew up on the East Coast. Family was very rich, but he wanted to be a mountain man. He was kind kind of dabbling in the politics of the fur trade. And to prove kind of his loyalty to one house, he killed a trapper, a native guy, who sold some beaver pelts to another house in a really gruesome way. He was looking to skip trial. His dad's a judge, and so they got him out of town. He abandoned a wife and a little kid, and they sent him out west. This is the fellow Ogden Utah's named after, and many Ogdens besides that. So he's in Fort Vancouver in Washington, and they're looking to get rid of him. He's a violent fellow. Nobody really likes him in the fort. And so they send him down through the Oregon Territory between the coast and the Snake River. And his job was to create a fur desert to wipe out every last fur-bearing animal, such that when the American trappers were pushing up, they'd hit this fur desert and there'd be nothing for them there, and they turn around and go home. He wrote this in his journal when he was in my area. Two of the tribes were kind of squabbling, and he said, "May they destroy each other, the more the better. If fond of war, let them enjoy it, and we, in the meantime, will endeavor to wage war on their beaver." Europe, beaver didn't fare much better. They have two glands. They eat a lot of willow that aggregates salicylic acid, same thing as we then make aspirin out of. So Pliny the Elder wrote about this. The glands were very valuable. They were a year's wages if you were a medieval laborer to bring one gland in and sell it. They have two. And then the church, in their infinite wisdom, decided beavers have scales and they swim in the water, thus they are a fish. And so if you wanted to eat red meat on Fridays, or the Catholic holidays where red meat is not allowed, well, you could pay somebody for a beaver. And so that was worth a year's wages too. Here's a picture of the bales getting ready to be sent of beaver pelts being loaded. And I'll close by just talking a little bit about where beavers are at now. So there's a lot of focus on beaver ponds. We're starting to notice that beavers under, or streams under beaver management do a lot better. And we can measure a lot of those things. A lot of those things that we spend billions with a B on, like water quality and quantity and fish habitat and fire severity reduction and droughts and, all this stuff. Beavers are doing a lot for and for free. And so there's been a focus recently, especially when waterways start to look like this. So this is a meadow. It was one of the places where the local Shasta tribe harvested a lot of food, because it would have been a wet meadow like those photos I saw. This would have been beavers all the way from one tree line to another. And now it's a wound through the landscape where the water is kind of seeping out, and the soil is dry. And a lot of folks are working to kind of bring beavers back and then turn the streams back over to beavers. There's a non-human intelligence there that we can't quite emulate. And it's becoming a bit of a partnership between even the blue teams and the red teams that usually don't see eye to eye, because water is a uniting issue. This is a visual of that. So this is one of those creeks that's incised into a stream, and the water is just running off the land. And you can see the beavers built a dam here. And just in that first year, the blush of that red in the landscape, that's the willow coming back just 1 year later, because that groundwater is now moving out laterally to the side. And this is a place that I love to go in Eastern Oregon. And you can see when beavers get to that point where their water is spreading out, these are the places where all the wildlife hang out. This is the ecological wealth of the land. And this is a spot kind of halfway between me and where Derek lives in the Illinois Valley. And this is a very, very dry region. And yet the beavers have created this 7-acre wetland. And this is at the height of the summer when every creek in this area is dry. And yet there's just millions of gallons of water being stored, because beavers are obsessively holding back water for their own needs. So I'll leave you with this picture. This is Beverly and Joe Travis. Joe Travis is sort of shy. You can kind of see him in the back there. And Beverly's getting her Epsom salt bath. This is in one of my halfway houses where I take refugee beavers in before releasing them into the wild. And Beverly was a pregnant beaver who was caught in a leg hold trap, and it shattered her wrist. And we got to know each other really well because I did a lot of Epsom salt soaks, and she would hold up her paw. I'd put the little mason jar there, and she'd lower her paw gently into it. And then we'd sit there and hang out for 20 minutes. And then when she was done, she'd always pull her paw out, and then I'd take the jar away. It's embarrassing to admit. I blame college for teaching me words like conspecific. But it took me until about 2 years ago to realize, until Beverly and Joe Travis, to realize that beavers are individuals in the same way that dogs are individuals. Absolutely individuals in their personalities. Some have senses of humor. Some are flighty. Some, it's hard to realize you've been missing that for a decade or more, calling them all like subadult male and juvenile female. But these are very family-oriented animals who really have a lot to teach us around managing our waterways. So with that, I'll stop sharing.
Well, thank you so much for that, Jacob. And I look forward to our next conversation too. That was great. Thank you. We're going to turn it back over to Leah again.
So I'm supposed to be the bad cop, but actually we have good news, which is that our website has come home. So you can just go to our website now. It's returned as mysteriously as it disappeared. deepgreenresistance.org, and you can see everything. So it's in black and white. We don't know why, but the color shall return one day too. So we're going to have a little break right now. What's going to happen is two things, and it depends on your attitude. If you are somebody who likes bears, okay, but take it or leave it. We're about to see a 6-minute video of bears. So if you're just kind of like, oh, they're cool, you could watch it for 30 seconds and you'd probably have enough. And then you can go off and get more snackage and return slowly. But if bears thrill your heart, you're about to have the best 6 minutes of probably this year, because it's an entire year's worth of bear video condensed into one 6-minute movie. I don't even know what to call it. All of the bears, all of our friendly neighborhood bears.
Yeah, these are all my neighbors.
These are the bears that know us and like us. So yeah, you got 6 minutes. You do with it what you want, and then we will return for more wonderful speakers.
Oh, before we start, I'll tell you, the mother of these babies was dropped off. There are things called babysitter trees, and a mother dropped off all the babies in here. Both of their mothers were dropped off 2 years ago, 3 years ago, as orphans. The mother bear left them in the tree out here, and then she either died or left them. And those babies, the mothers of these, were about this size. Or no, actually, they were smaller. They were left off in about June, late June, early July.
Special thanks to Mary Richter, who helped me. I'm still a 20th century person, so she made the whole video for me.
So the next person is Deanna Meyer, and Deanna's a longtime environmental activist. She's on the board of Deep Green Resistance and is the founder and president of Prairie Protection Colorado. And I think it's fair to say that she loves prairie dogs the way that Jacob loves beavers. Um, Deanna.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great presentation from the Bears, of course, and Jacob. Um, and I loved I loved looking at that as well because I can see my meadows where I live used to be beaver dams, and that made it really apparent when he showed that swelling of the water. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, I'm Deanna Meyer. I've worked really hard to protect prairie dogs in Colorado. I was inspired after I read several of Derek's books, and he helped me save the forest in my area that was about to be killed by the Forest Service or heavily damaged anyway. Those projects are coming back on the public forest on my boundaries. And anyway, I was so inspired by Derek's work that I started really paying attention to the prairie dogs in my area. I didn't really understand what a keystone species was or how they really protected so many other species. And I knew that there was a colony that was going to be in trouble that was on a very large acreage in Castle Rock. And so I just took, with the support of Derek and Deep Green Resistance and other advocates who were also concerned, I was able to really fight hard against that and even get a referendum in front of the city council on the development. And we were able to save, unfortunately, not the land, which is the most important thing. I still have not been involved in a campaign where a development was going to go in and they actually stopped the development for any animal or species or for any reason whatsoever, which is extremely frustrating because habitat is the number one thing. But I was able to save some of the prairie dogs there and relocate them up to the land where I live now, and they're still here. They're going to have their 11th generation that's next year of pups, and they're all doing pretty well up here. They've definitely increased the habitat where I live, so I've been able to see a lot of golden eagles and bobcats, and I see mountain lions and coyotes, of which I probably, maybe the mountain lions I would have not seen as much, but I think that was a fluke that didn't have much to do with the prairie dogs because they probably don't care too much about eating prairie dogs. But all of the wildlife that I have seen a lot more of now that they're here, because I have a community now of all different kinds of species that really depend on them. So I work really hard to protect those prairie dogs and I'm increasingly, like all of us are, environmentalism depressed at seeing how much of our habitat is being destroyed and how it continues to be kind of ramped up. But I also know that if just a few of us can make a huge difference if we really raise our voices. And I've seen it. I don't see it with I see a lot of the environmental organizations that are very large. They depend on lobbying, which ends up being trying to get money for their organization to go ahead and do some kind of a deal. So, like, if they're going to sue them, they'll get money, or they'll be able to get money if they just ask for a little bit, for a lot less than they were originally. But I truly have seen the real changes is when small groups of people start using the love that they have for whatever they're fighting for and putting a voice to it, and they start going in front. And just, I've seen it when colonies have been saved or any other pieces of land have been saved, it's all a result of a few people being extremely determined to save them, which is kind of how I saved this colony and many other ones. If I get real determined, I can influence other people to be as determined, and then we can see changes. But they're small ones. They're not nearly large scale ones like habitat protection. That's something we all, that's a hard one because it's relentless and it's hard. And I like the idea of putting forests into national park services, but then you're seeing them even trying to go around that now to do logging. So yeah. What else would you like to know, Derek? Or
So can you talk a little bit about the role of prairie dogs? Um, a couple things. One is to mention the phrase you've used before of nature's candy bars. And I mean, they are their own wonderful beings, and also how much they feed, and also the relationship between them and various plants and various, and also water.
yeah. I mean, they're so amazing and they're so beautiful. I wish I would have done a little slide just to show you the pictures of them kissing each other and giving each other massages, and just how that beaver picture was so amazing, seeing that beaver putting its foot in the Epsom salts. I mean, that's so cool. But um we have pictures of us rescuing them. I don't think they're nearly as content and happy to have treatment as those beavers were, but they probably would have been if you had to keep them for a little while and they got past the sphere part. But they are the services that they provide. This little creature. My favorite story is the rain. So the Hopi and the Navajo used to say, if you kill all the prairie dogs to the colonizers coming over and killing them in mass, there will be no more rain. And so Stephen Booner wanted to look into that comment a little bit, and he found out that because the colonies were huge, I mean, we have no idea what was here. We're at less than 1% of the populations of prairie dogs now, probably similar to where with the beavers as we had back then. There was around up to 5 billion prairie dogs, and they would create these huge colonies. Like they had one that was still intact before that went down, that was 25,000 square miles in Texas. So I mean that these are all over our short grass prairies, and they created all these burrows which tapped into our aquifers, and they went down into the ground, and they were able to aerate the whole soil and moisturize the whole soil, so you had much healthier grasslands with perennial plants. Now there people blame prairie dogs for destruction because it's all annual plants based on soil that's been completely tilled and destroyed for crops. But back then, they were just this really, really important feature on the prairies, and they kept all the grass trimmed around their burrows. So when big, huge grass fires would come around and you got these huge complexes, all of the animals would come into those colonies so they wouldn't get burned because all the grass was so short for long, long periods of time. So the ungulates and the predators would come onto those prairie dog colonies that have such a huge, that were so big, and they would avoid the fires. There's no grass to burn, right? So they're not in these huge grass fires, because that's the extent of that. And then also they found, Booner went back to the water and found out that, not only does it recharge aquifers because the burrows are deep, the soil's all aerated, so the water goes down into these millions of holes and it recharges aquifers instead of what we have now, which is a huge runoff into our rivers that get sucked back up and sprayed back onto GMO crops. Back then, they had all that stabilized there, and the moon would pull the water from the aquifers in these big fissures, and this would be any animal that created fissures, up and down. And that's much like tides. And when the water comes up, it just created much more condensation, which is similar to the rainforest. So they would actually literally bring rain in from the condensation that would move up and down through these fissures, through our moon. And also there's a lot more water down in the ground that could move up and down because the water would trickle down into the groundwater. So that was, and then the candy bars of the prairies, of course, somebody said this on, I forget, it was a National Geographic or whatever, but it was a land manager at one of these big preserves. And he said, prairie dogs are the candy bars of the prairies, because everybody, that's a food source for so many of the different birds and coyotes and badgers, and just a huge complex. And burrowing owls live in the burrows, as well as rattlesnakes and snakes. I mean, there's just so many species that depend on prairie dog colonies, on prairie dog burrows, on prairie dogs' existences to live and to be healthy. And that's why they're called keystone, because it's just like Jenga. If you pull the wrong block out, which is a prairie dog, everything collapses and becomes much less healthy and diverse. And so they're so worth fighting for. And people, they've been so demonized, just like our, wolves, any native species, basically, that is able to do well and really benefit the biotic communities, gets demonized and called plague carriers or disease carriers like brucellosis in the buffalo, and on and on. And so they've really done a number on them, and they continue to kill them in mass, even when they're absolutely needed for like the most critically endangered mammal in North America, which is the black-footed ferret. That whole program's kind of a joke to me. I think they're functionally extinct, but they keep throwing them out. They've bred over 11,000 of these ferrets, and only 200 are alive in the wild, and most of those were just recently released. So for years and years, they keep dying and dying, and that's because they, for one, are inbred to a very severe extent, but also they need 15 to 20,000 acres at a minimum of densely populated prairie dog colonies to live. And we just don't have that habitat anymore. And people continue to kill them in mass and poison tens of thousands of them more than that. I mean, they are so mass poisoned in Colorado and there's no laws to protect them. And so it really is up to us to start highlighting how beautiful they are and important. I mean, is that going to do anything? Well, it does save colonies here and there. And there are some plans that we're trying to work on where they would be more motivated to move them onto prairies where they could be protected. But yeah, I could go on and on about the beauty, the importance, and everything. They have the most sophisticated language that's ever been studied in animals. Of course, probably any animal that you studied for 32 years, which Kon Slobodchikov did, you would probably find the same thing. But they're really dependent on their colonies because they have to depend on everybody in it to warn them if a predator is coming. They're also one of the less predated species when they have large colonies because of their vocalizations and their warnings to each other.
Well, thank you for that, Deanna. And that highlights again the need for protection of large scale areas, because what we need is huge prairie dog colonies. Thank you for that, Deanna. Thank you, and I'll thank you as always for all your wonderful work. And now we're going to have a short film by Julia Barnes about oceans. It's a very short film. Start it.
Julia is a wonderful filmmaker, and she is the one who made a film out of our book, Bright Green Lies, and you can see it for free. Okay.
And Julia gives me great whatever optimism I have, which is not that much. Whatever optimism I have comes from people like Julia, because I first met her when she was, I think, 16 or 17, making her first film, and she's a young person who is brilliant and devoted to wild nature.
The ocean is the largest part of our planet. It is where life began, and it is the driver of so many of the processes that make our planet livable. The ocean regulates the climate, it circulates nutrients, and it's plankton in the ocean who produce 70 to 80% of the oxygen in the air we breathe. We completely depend on the ocean. Its health should be our priority. Yet the ocean is the place where we've seen some of the worst effects of industrial civilization. 90% of the large fish in the ocean have been taken by industrial fishing. Over 50% of the world's coral reefs have been wiped out due to ocean acidification and ocean warming. The ocean absorbs 90% of the heat from climate change. So the ocean is heating up much faster than the atmosphere. And that excess heat is driving changes in the migration patterns of fish. It's causing coral bleaching, and it's causing losses in the populations of plankton. The ocean has been treated as a dumping ground. It contains millions of tons of plastic, and this plastic gets eaten at all levels of the food web, accumulating in the stomachs of fish and whales, releasing toxins and filling their stomachs so that they don't have room for actual food and often starve. There are also hundreds of deoxygenated areas in the ocean, caused by pesticide and fertilizer runoff. Areas where fish can't breathe because there's not enough oxygen in the water. And the plankton responsible for producing most of our planet's oxygen have seen their populations diminish by over 40%, at a time when we should be working to restore the health of the ocean. We're seeing industries look for new ways to exploit it, potentially more dangerous than anything the ocean has seen so far. The deep-sea mining industry wants to plunder an area of the seafloor as wide as the United States. In doing so, they would disrupt a key part of the ocean's carbon cycle, damaging the ability of the deep sea to sequester carbon. They would be creating plumes of sediment that can remain suspended in the water column for months at a time, smothering fish and damaging their respiratory systems. Species extinction is considered a likely outcome of deep-sea mining. And the impact of these mines is much greater than just the mining site, with currents that have the potential to spread sediment to vast areas of the ocean. This would affect the migration routes of great white sharks, whales, sea turtles, and so many others. It would be an assault on the ocean on a scale not previously seen. And the ocean doesn't need any more assaults right now. We need people fighting for the ocean and taking on the industries that are destroying it. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's never been anything more important. All of life on Earth depends on the ocean.
So before we do, we have two more things to do. And before we do them, I just want to say that of all the dead zones in the ocean, there is one that has recovered. And the dead zone that recovered was off the coast of it's in the Black Sea off the coast of southern Russia. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, farming was no longer economically feasible in the region. And when industrial farming became no longer economically feasible, the runoff stopped. And within 25 years, it had recovered enough that there was now a fishery. That suggests to me and this is one of the things that is, I think, important about DGR is that as well as saving primary habitat, we also need to recognize that this culture is killing the planet. And one of the ways I perceive environmentalism is like there's a person brought into an emergency room and all the doctors and nurses are doing everything they can to save this patient. They are putting bandages on, they're giving them infusions of blood, they're doing everything except for stopping the killer who is still stabbing the patient. And I think that saving habitat is the most important thing we can do. At the same time, we have to recognize that the way our entire culture is structured is fundamentally incompatible with life on Earth. And so one of the things that Deep Green Resistance does is at the same time that we try to protect habitat ourselves and try to also support other organizations protecting habitat, we also attempt to provide that larger analysis that we have to recognize the harm that agriculture does, that industrialization does, and that a lot of times groups who are fighting for habitat can't make the larger analysis because they will lose their credibility. You can't say, I want to protect this big piece of land here at the same time that you say civilization itself is inherently unsustainable. And Earth First took that role for a while until they became no longer Earth First. And uh, that's just a role we play, is we provide the larger analysis as well as to support the habitat protection. So I wanted to say that, and then Leah's going to say something, and then we have two more things which we will introduce, and then we're done.
So don't forget to stop by our website at deepgreenresistance.org if any of this was inspiring to you. Also, everyone who has spoken has an organization and can also use money. So I know we're so few and we need so much. But if you've got it and you want to give some, it's anybody who has spoken today would do great things with your money. So you can go to us, you can go to them. So with that, we're going to go on to the next thing, which is now for something completely different.
As Monty Python said.
Yes.
So we have two things. We have a short video that's I think really funny.
Nothing you've ever seen before.
By John Spear, and then we're going to talk about DGR's
our latest project.
Our biggest project.
So our friends Gray Squirrel and Brown Duck here to entertain you.
Oh yeah, well you're nuts. Oh Squirrel, it's so good to see you. Who are you talking to over there? That walnut tree over there. You talk to trees? That tree has a bunch of rotten nuts. Have you ever eaten a rotten nut? I sure have not. I wouldn't start if I were you. Don't worry, I'm not gonna. What's the matter, Squirrel? My throat is closing up. Is it from a nut allergy? No, Duck, I'm a squirrel. We generally tolerate nuts really good. It's a joke allergy. You're allergic to jokes? Just nut jokes. You're joking. Not joking. I'm serious. Ooh, you see that deer eating pumpkin over there? It reminds me of something thoughtful. I get those thoughts. Yeah, me too. Sometimes I'm thoughtful too. What about are you being thoughtful about? Food. Me too. Are you hungry? Doc, that is exactly right. Here, have this piece of lettuce I found. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Here, have the seed I found. Oh, thank you. I like the way you say you're welcome. I love saying it. Well, I love hearing it. The way you said it. Thank you. You're welcome. When I was walking through somewhere... So you walked out here? Scampered. You scampered over? Scampered over, correct. And through somewhere, Illinois. I flew there once. I flew over it once. I didn't stay there, but I would have. I knew that. Wow, Squirrel, you know a lot. It isn't me, Doc. It's my love of knowledge. It was real dry air there, so dry it made me feel like a crinkly leaf. And like an old piece of corn that never got shucked. You mean sweet corn? Fields of it. Oh, Doc, it was so sweet. I ate a lot. I ate 9, 10, and 11 when I'm around sweet corn. Those are mild-looking numbers. But then it started getting blistering hot from the sun. You know when it's really hot? Do you know what I mean? Oh, you sounds awful. It was not bad. Once I got way out of that region. That reminds me of a story I want to tell you. Will you remind me to tell you? Yeah, sure. Look at this blister I got off the sun the other day. You know, it could have even been worse had it been hotter. Well, that looks like a serious blister. Where is it again? It's right here on my toe. I don't see it anymore. It was there a minute ago. I know I saw it. Well, maybe it was a ladybug trying to find some place for the winter. I don't know. I agree. What do you think of the birds out here? I generally don't have beef with my fellow birds. But there are some. I hear what you're saying. I don't trust raptors. Don't judge a raptor. I've known, in finger quotes, some raptors. Have you ever known a raptor? Yes, what's a raptor? Eagles, falcons, hawks. Oh, those raptors. Tell me, are there other raptors? Queen Latifah is my favorite raptor. Doc, Queen Latifah is not a raptor. My cousin knew a raptor once. That's what I'm saying. About how many times do you have dinner with one? Once. Well, they aren't that bad. I'm not saying they're bad. You'll never hear that out of me. What would you say if a hawk or an eagle were watching us right now? Duck! Don't ever die, Squirrel. I think they know what they're looking for. I mean hide! You mean like squirrel hide? Neither one works very good, does it? We need a better signal. Oh, I'm going to use a quack. It'll be a secret code for danger. Good, tell me. Quack it to me. I want one. It's private, it's secret. So tell me. A little after the show. Well, I'm going to tell you what my secret code is right now. Because you never know when you're going to have a raptor looking at you like an appetizer. Squirrel, that's hilarious. I'm not trying to be funny. I know, but I picture cocktail wieners and pickles flying around hunting us. Get it? I don't get it. What was that, Squirrel? Did that come out of you? Yeah. That's my secret alarm for raptors. I'm sorry. I was out in the wild forest the other day. The other day? This sounds like a setup for a joke. I really was out there. It was actually yesterday. I don't know why I said the other day. Well, forgive yourself. I once told my mom I'd like to live at home with her forever. Yeah, what happened? We drifted apart. What's that got to do with what? I had to free myself from my instincts. Oh, I wouldn't. I'm not proud of them, but I'm not going to go around being stuck up either. Isn't that the same thing? I think it is, but not identical. Right, okay. I want to ask you a question. Why did the duck cross the road? Oh, I don't know why. Why did the duck do that? But I think you know better why, because you're a duck. I need to ask you a question too. Do you know that deer that ate all that pumpkin? Do you think he ate it all? Do you think he finished it off, or do you think there's some left over? Why did the duck cross the road? You know, the way he was eating really fast and sloppy. I don't think he ate it all. I thought it was all gone the way he was eating it. You see his stomach? It was really puffy. Like he ate a lot. And he didn't look like he was going to stop. The duck. Why did the duck cross the highway? I thought you said yes, road. So what changed? You're making me take so long to finish my jokes that they put it in the highway. Okay, I get it. Why did the duck cross the street? The road. Why? He was hoping to find some crackers. Crackers? 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 That's not right. Why? Ducks do not call each other ducks. They call each other crackers. Oh, that's a good answer. Are you serious? No, it was a joke. Seriously? No, I was serious. You make my head hurt like a woodpecker's. I heard from a woodpecker that their heads don't hurt when... You didn't let me finish. You make my head hurt like a woodpecker's foot after it got run over. Ha! You know what you need? Bread. Oh, that's corny. Did someone say corn? You know I said it. I wonder if there's any of that pumpkin left that deer was eating. I'm going back and check. Wait, did you say you were the duck that crossed the road?
So what is DGR's new project?
Well, DGR has a fantastic opportunity to help protect an entire watershed from where it starts in the mountains to the ocean. It's Elk Creek, and Elk Creek is not very far from here, and it runs about 5 miles from, it starts in the national and state parks and then runs to the ocean. Some of it is protected by the parks already, and some of it's protected by the city. And I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life, and DGR is going to take on this project of helping other organizations to protect the entire watershed. And we have this opportunity because it's very short. You can't protect the entire Mississippi River from,
Minnesota.
but this is doable. This is absolutely doable. And Elk Creek is important. I mean, every place is important, but Elk Creek is important in part because the Smith River is about 10 miles north of here, and the Smith River is, I believe, the longest undammed river in the United States.
That's what they say.
And it is pretty well protected, at least until it gets to the lower parts where there's some agriculture. And Smith River Alliance has been doing a fantastic job of uh, trying to protect as much of that area as they can. And they've also been doing some projects on Elk Creek, and we're planning on working with the Smith River Alliance and with the local Indian Nation and various other sources to protect this watershed. And the Smith River has some pretty decent runs of some types of salmon. And I don't know if people know this, but salmon don't always go back to the river where they began. And that's how salmon are able to re-inhabit places if there's some sort of catastrophic failure. And the Smith River is a pretty healthy river. I mean, as healthy as anything could be these days. And if there was some sort of cataclysm like a pesticide spill, there's a lot of pesticides used on the Lower Smith. If there was a pesticide spill, if there was something that would wipe it out, the salmon would have to come from somewhere else to re-inhabit. And also, coho salmon are especially endangered, and they like small streams better than main streams. And so they are on the tributaries of the Smith, but they're also in Elk Creek. Pacific lamprey, who are also endangered there in Elk Creek. There's of course elk and bear and mountain lions, and we want to work to help beaver come back and turn this whole watershed into what it should be. So that's the general idea is to we want to start helping to protect this land.
And I think what would be involved is a lot of it's owned privately. So it's getting conservation easements from private landowners or getting them to donate it when they die, or even just selling it outright to the the land trust that would hold it.
To land trusts, and also
Well, the tribe
the tribe is
just
very interested
in
in
owning a lot of
doing
it.
this, and Smith River Alliance is already very interested in, and they're already doing this some. And Smith River Alliance has also been doing some beaver analog projects, which is where they do the work of beavers, except there aren't many beavers because there aren't many beavers here in this county. There are a few, but I think that's great work, and I would like to see beavers doing that instead of humans, or in addition to humans. So that's the big announcement on the new project we're picking up is the protecting Elk Creek all the way from its mouth up to the redwoods, and the upper parts, like I said, are already protected by state and national parks. And another reason this is doable is I know this is not doable on a personal level, but I was talking to the head of Smith River Alliance a few weeks ago about this, and one of the reasons he was really excited is because ultimately this would probably only mean getting easements or title to 1,000 or 1,500 acres, which of course is not doable on a personal level, but on a conservation size. Like we were just today, uh, Deanna Lynn Wolf was talking about trying to protect 1.4 million acres,
Yeah.
and that's a wonderful and an
extraordinary.
important thing
Yeah.
to do.
I love
And
thinking about that scale. That's like landscape scale.
and
Yeah.
that's also um, that's a huge thing, and this is also a small thing, which is also doable and necessary. Oh, and by the way, I have seen baby Pacific lampreys many times in this creek. And as I said, lampreys are just getting absolutely hammered. Baby lampreys are pretty interesting because adult lampreys parasitize off of other fish. They will grab onto them
And bite.
and
Hold
suck their
on.
blood.
Yeah.
But the babies are filter feeders, and they live down in the sand and just filter feed whomever comes by. So if you reach into the sand with just your hands, you can then you'll see them start wriggling, and they're this size. They're like this long and black and squiggly. Anyway, I've seen them in Elk Creek many times. Oh, and I've also seen Apodontia. Those are called mountain beavers, but they're not actually related to beavers. They are one of the oldest rodents, and um, I've not seen them. What I've seen is I've seen their sign, and they have very limited habitat range. Anyway, so Elk Creek is a wonderful place to protect.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Cool. You can send that.